Okay, welcome to the Crypto Hustle Market Update. That's Tori D and Crypto Hustle's here. How are you, Crypto Hustle?
I'm doing excellent. How are you doing, Satori?
Doing good. Busy, but doing good. I was talking to you earlier, and you were busy. So how was your week going with trading and everything?
Absolutely amazing. Definitely the best Bitcoin trading week of 2016 for me. The last time I saw this kind of action in the Bitcoin markets was, last fall and also close to last Christmas in December. And then the markets have been really quiet and dead for a while. And then we just recently had a breakout. I pretty much spent, all day Saturday and Sunday doing some intraday trading and scalping, and it was great.
Nice. Actually, I was reading um, one of your articles, and it was about the scalping. Want to dig into that a little bit more about setting up low fee trading accounts and kind of getting into nuts
Yeah,
and bolts of trading?
absolutely. So, scalping in a traditional sense is using a one-to-one risk to reward, right? So, essentially, like what risk to reward means is that you measure price action on a chart and you say, okay, this is the area that I'm going to cut out, and this is the area that I expect my profits to ride. Usually if you're doing like swing trading, you're holding your trades over a longer period of time. You could hold them either over the course of a few days or a few weeks, right? You tend to use a little less leverage with swing trading, and leverage is just increasing the size of your trades by borrowing coins or borrowing whatever securities that you happen to be trading. But with the difference with scalping is that you're not holding your positions for very long, and you're definitely not sleeping on your positions, right? So I do both, right? I'll have one exchange where I'm taking a swing trade. So, I caught the breakout at 470, added to my position at 500. Now I'm just kind of, took a bit of profit when we went up to 570. Now I'm just kind of letting it ride a little bit. But there's a lot of good stuff that happens in between when the markets get rolling. And so I like to do a bit of intraday trading to catch those movements, to short peaks, buy dips, that kind of stuff, catch breakouts. And what's really amazing with what we're doing and why it's a lot of fun for me right now is we now have a live trading room, and we have a mix of stock traders, futures traders, and crypto traders. But all their crypto traders were in the room with me this weekend, and I was showing them my scalping technique, and we literally nailed and shorted the exact top around 4,000 CNY, and we bought the exact dip before it bounced. And when I mean exact, like I mean exact, as in like within a minute of it bouncing type of thing. And there are several students who are with me on those trades to vouch and confirm what I'm saying, that I'm not just talking pipe dreams here. But this is a strategy and a technique that's not for everyone. It usually use a little bit higher leverage. I generally like to use anywhere from like 8 to 10x leverage, and it requires an instinct for the market. There are certain techniques that I use, specific trading techniques. I guess you could call them a trade secret, but there is an element of instinct similar to, you really have to get a sense for reading the market and getting a good sense of where you're going to catch the bounce. Because if you're trying to dip buy during a dump, it can get very dangerous if you try to dip buy midway through the dump, right? It can move fast against you and you could get destroyed essentially. But if you're good at it, you could easily double your trading account in a day or two.
Yeah, I was talking to someone on one of the Bitcoin forums, posting up some of our shows and promoting it, and we kind of got into this little discussion. You know, there's a point where you do your research and you have all the variables and this and that, but sometimes you have to go with kind of like your instinct in the market, and then he said that's the best time where he makes his most profits or his best trades that he has personally done. And I think too, part of it is kind of like this weird little Taoist Zen thing where they talk about is like, the doing of not doing, where you let say that the deeper level of you processing information um, take hold. I think because like intuition is kind of like you can't just do intuition without having any research or knowledge. You know what I mean? Like you can't just be like, oh, I'm a newbie and I'm gonna
Absolutely.
come in there. But you allow your instincts because you've been practicing and studying so much, and you kind of let that flow. Because sometimes you could overthink stuff, right? And that's what you're saying, like, oh, if you kind of like overthink it, and then you're gonna miss, say, the rise of it or the bottom of it, and kind of like just go with your feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Abs
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of view it similar to martial arts. I've done several years of martial arts training, and it's interesting with martial arts. Are very similar to trading. You get noobs who come into the dojo or the kun to train, and they're kind of full of themselves, right? They're like, oh yeah, I can do whatever, blah 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 blah, and they think they're coming in as Bruce Lee, right? Just like noob traders come in, oh yeah, I'm gonna get rich quick, make some fast gains, blah blah blah, and maybe they'll get lucky at first, and they'll think they're superstars until the markets school them. But with martial arts, you start off learning technique and practicing your technique, and it starts off very clunky and a bit boring, and there's a part of you when you're just learning, you kind of want to skip all that and become Bruce Lee, but you can't get there unless you have the experience of constant practice and repetition. And then once you get to a point of proficiency from having ingrained it in your muscle memory for 10,000 plus hours or whatnot, then you can let go of form, and that's when the instinct takes over, right? Then you have a perfect bridge between the science and the art. And I feel it's the same thing with many things as well as trading. Like I cultivated my scalping technique after spending hundreds of hours testing and practicing and tweaking and finding ways and just seeing how the markets react. Lots of FaceTime in front of a computer, watching the charts during major volatility. And that's how you develop that instinct. But unfortunately, people will see me doing some trades like that, and I'll tell them, I'll say, don't trade chop. I'll say, it's only for certain market conditions. I do not do this every day. The last time I did this was in December. That should give you an idea with the kind of market conditions where this technique is efficient. Unfortunately, people throw a lot of money on the line too soon, and they make mistakes, and those mistakes become costly. And I always tell people, you want to start off with very small amounts to build that instinct, to build that experience. You'll make mistakes. Don't make them costly. Make them a low price tag. And then as you get more skilled and proficient, you can slowly, just like turning up the thermostat, you can just slowly increase your position size so you get more and more comfortable. You have to consider it like gaining new levels. You start off, maybe someone's starting off practicing with a few bucks, and then every time they start to see more and more returns, and their account starts growing, they can start thinking of increasing their position size till eventually they're swinging with full power.
Yeah, I think that's important for anybody testing the waters and trading, or I mean, like what you said about the martial arts, and that could be for me. I learned a lot like in the kitchen, but also prior to that, I was doing sports and I played baseball. And it's the same thing.
Okay.
You practice your techniques, your how to stand and all this kind of stuff. And but once the game starts,
Mhm.
if you put enough practice, then you just let your muscle memory work, and you just kind of just do. Because the more you try to do it, the harder it gets. But let's go over kind of the
Yes.
market conditions. What did you see in the market, or how are they, and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so essentially what happened was the Chinese yuan got devalued, I think probably by 0.5%. and all of a sudden, China, the Chinese Bitcoin markets started to break out and went from a 5% lead to 10% lead over to USD markets, and just kept on going up and up, and breaking out, consolidating, breaking out. And then the USD markets just kind of started lagging behind cautiously. We broke out of a major ascending triangle that's been forming over the course of 6 months since our last S&P 500. We just broke into new highs. These are new highs for 2016 as well as 2015. The halving is coming up in July, which means the inflation rate of Bitcoin will be reduced in half. And so I foresee, as long as everything's good with the network, and miners can adapt to reduced block rewards, and the network stays secure, I foresee the next few months to over the next year being a very profitable year for Bitcoin. Now, obviously, the market's going to become overextended, overbought, over exuberant bullishness. It'll go parabolic, and then it'll dump, and then people will pour sand on their heads or whatever, because maybe they'll buy a top. So you really got to know how to time the markets, right? I wouldn't just tell people just buy Bitcoin, right? You have to really kind of time the market so that you buy at the most optimal times. There will be a point in time where I'll probably cash out with the idea of like buying back cheaper when there's a big correction. Now, we also talked about the DAO that was released recently, and I think we talked about that on a previous show. And I said I was skeptical, and a lot of people were hyping it and saying that it was going to go to the moon and this and that. And I just saw it as a pre-market bubble, and I didn't like the supply creation, because anyone who wanted to buy could just buy pre-market, which led me to ask the question, well, where are the buyers going to be once it hits the market? Well, it turns out I was right on that. And I told our students and people who were following me not to invest in DAO, that it likely, unlike other ICOs, it likely wouldn't bring a return on investment. It was very, very range bound during price discovery, which is not normal. Usually coins at least start off really, really at a high premium during price discovery. So it's very range bound. And then at one point it actually went, I think, 10% below the pegged value of Ether in the pool, right? And there's a whole bunch of, security issues with it. And apparently, the founders were they create a over $1 million security proposal to secure the framework or whatnot. And some people were kind of upset with that, because perhaps these things should have been thought of and worked on, prior to launching it, right? Not we'll launch something and then raise all this money and then try to take some money out of it just to, patch all these security flaws. So,
Yeah, and I think that's also too. Maybe we could go over again for people that are just starting off in the cryptocurrency. But why Bitcoin is one of the most profitable markets to trade or even to invest in.
Well, the great thing about Bitcoin is that its number one use case right now is a store of value and a hedge against economic uncertainty, right? It's being used more as a store of value than it is actually even a currency, but it's a hybrid. It can be both. It can be a ledger. It can be many things, right? But many financial experts, so on and so forth, they're talking about Bitcoin, comparing it to gold, comparing it to real estate, and as a store of value. And we're all looking for the next killer app for blockchains and smart contracts and dApps and DAOs and all this stuff. But sometimes the killer app is the most. Sometimes the most killer app comes with simplicity, right? And the fact that Bitcoin has been a hedge and a store of value, in my opinion, is a good enough killer app for me, right? And unlike many other altcoins that have lost their value, because they all have very fierce competition with each other, because there's a constant stream of new altcoins hitting the markets, they can be very profitable to trade, but most of them have yet to kind of retain a lot of their value. So Bitcoin has been profitable just as an investment this year. So let's even forget about trading. Just as an investment, had people started investing in Bitcoin during that 166 washout or when it was in the lower 200s, they would have pretty much tripled their money by now, right? And this comes at a time where we're seeing this global debt bubble, where we're seeing inflation rates, devaluation of currencies, stuff like that. It's been a great hedge against the Canadian dollar for me, because the Canadian dollar is being devalued on the open markets, at least compared to the USD, probably by like 30% or something like that. It varies, or 25%. It varies. Whereas, Bitcoin for me has increased like 200%, right? So it was actually better for me to store value and savings in Bitcoin than actually putting money in a bank account, right? Because the purchasing power in my for fiat dollars dwindled while Bitcoin increased. Now, obviously, that can't happen forever. Just like we see as gold, people use gold as a hedge and store value, but it also has its bubble. It goes up to $1,800, $2,000, and then it bear trends for a couple of years, and tests 1,000 support, right? Pretty much losing half of its value over the course of a few years, right? So it's still about timing the market. I don't say that it's always buying at any price point is going to be profitable. And as far as trading is concerned, it has the most liquidity, the most trading volume, the most on-ramps onto fiat with fiat pairings. It's used as a gateway to get exposure to other altcoins, because the most liquid altcoin markets are paired up against Bitcoin. So it kind of acts as its own, type of reserve currency of crypto. I see it similar to the USD, but for crypto, except that it's not controlled by a centralized bank, but it operates with a similar relationship to the other cryptocurrency markets, just like the USD's relationship to other fiat currencies on the Forex market. So
Yeah, that's actually a really important and interesting point, because in the prior show we were talking about how things get value, right? And it's always in relationship to other things. So in the crypto world, almost everything is measured against Bitcoin, right?
yeah, exactly. When we're all taking profits, we're all calculating it based on Bitcoin, and that's had a very stabilizing effect on Bitcoin, in my opinion. Now, when Bitcoin obviously goes on its breakouts, bull trends, it makes aggressive gains, but for the most part, this year and even in 2015 has been incredibly stable. At one point, it was even more stable than gold.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, and that's probably also too what you're talking about earlier too. Why the conditions, if someone wants to look at the conditions, and it would be say the volatility within the you said the Chinese um, went
Yeah, the
down.
Chinese yuan.
Yeah, went
Mhm.
down, and so that's when everybody wanted to kind of like go to Bitcoin to kind of like store their value of their money, right?
Exactly, because they have a lot of capital controls, so they limit how much money can leave the mainland. They 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 have a culture where there's I'd listen to a podcast with Bobby Lee, who's being interviewed, and he runs BTC China, and they're talking about the Chinese culture and how there are very wealthy Chinese people who just kind of, they get condos and they stash it full of cash from floor to ceiling type of thing. Um, and, you know, so that's okay. That's fine. That's one thing. They hold their money. They maybe they don't trust the banking system. But if you devalue that cash by 0.5% and someone's holding, millions of dollars worth, well, they're taking a pretty big hit, you know?
Yeah.
And so, Bitcoin is, because it's censorship resistant, and it's one of the most open forms of money that we have, borderless, um, pseudonymous, but also transparent. Um, it's just so efficient, and people are having more faith in it as a store of value because it's been around for over 7 years. So it's now starting to test. Um, it's starting to stand a test of time, essentially. So that's one use case in China. My colleague and business partner Chris Dunn, he just came back from Myanmar, and he was saying that everyone there holds cash because their government literally wiped out everyone's bank accounts to zero twice.
Oh man.
Completely just wiped out everyone's money. So no one trusts the banks. So they're all using cash. But cash is good. I'm not saying we should eliminate cash. I like cash because it's anonymous, and you can hold it and all that kind of fun stuff. And it is very peer-to-peer cash transactions. And I don't think everything should be digital, because we have issues with identity theft and surveillance and all that kind of stuff. That said, it's good to have a balance between like a form of digital cash that's not centralized, because it can give people like that access to global markets that they don't have access to, right? On the internet, everything's fair game. Everyone is equal. It's a kind of a meritocracy. It's cheap to, build a business online or start marketing. Social media is free. People can blog for free. People can start making money regardless of what area in the world they live in. And if they accept Bitcoin, then even if they can't get a bank account, they can get exposure to getting some money and having access to international markets.
Yeah, and that's really important. I guess we'll leave the first part at that. Is that it's an even playing field, and you're only limited by your own research and your own creativity and your own hard work. And so,
Exactly.
yeah.
All right, so my website is cryptohustle.com. On this website, there's all kinds of guides on how to get started with Bitcoin, and I also put a special emphasis on the markets. So it's geared towards beginners, crypto enthusiasts, investors, and traders. Cryptohustle.com.